No, it's written. It's in and I've done all the calculations and weighs, etc. So he's reviewing today. The letter of commitment I got always sufficient. Does not enough. Need to know? Like the letter of
Oh, no.
okay. So I am, it is my top priority. But
So maybe 5 minutes a week.
yes, for sure. I'm leaving on Tuesday.
Yeah, so then just with all of
Colonel's is sending me. Yeah, all right. Anyway, very quick report.
whatever it does, it's not well, I don't know.
I went right through it.
Hi, Arlene. How are you? Good. Nice to see you too.
So you could send anything that I
Yeah, I'm just back.
We good? Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Call this meeting to order. I see we have quorum. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I'll now take a motion to confirm the minutes from October 10th, 2019. Moved by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any petitions at this time? Seeing none, we'll now go through the items. (10.1) Final report 2346 and 2352 Weston Road zoning bylaw amendment application. We have speakers at 10 o'clock. 10.2 preliminary report 63 and 73 Widdicombe Hill Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor Holiday.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Morning.
I wish to move the staff recommendations and an amendment. And the amendment is to have Toronto Public Health report as part of the circulation on this.
Okay, are we okay with the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? That carries. Item is amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.3 left turn prohibition Keele Street and North Park Drive. And at Quinan Drive, we have a speaker on that item. 10.4 stop control Brookers Lane and Annie Craig Drive. That's in my ward. Councillor Ford, can you move that with thanks to staff on my behalf?
Mr. Chair, I'll move staff recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.5 encroachment appeal for a fence at 14 Atherton Crescent. Again, that's in my ward. Councillor Ford, could you move that on my behalf?
Move staff recommendations.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.6 traffic calming Bisset Avenue between Gair Drive and Westhead Road for poll in my ward. Councillor Ford.
Move staff recommendations.
Councillor Ford moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.7 traffic calming Leicester Avenue between Keele Street and Glenhaven Street. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I do have a motion to delete the staff recommendations. It's on the screen.
Wish to be recorded in the negative.
Yeah, I know, we want to record it, right?
Recorded
Stephen?
vote by Councillor Holiday. All in favor? Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Ford, Councillor Grimes.
I don't like comments. I've never liked comments.
Do you want to time
Okay,
out?
well,
Opposed? Councillor Holiday and Councillor Perruzza. That carries.
And I'm not going to object to them if she wants.
10.8 installation of traffic calming Wall Avenue between Langside Avenue and Portage Avenue. Councillor Nunziata.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.9 introduction of overnight on-street permit parking Sundell Avenue between Cameron Avenue and Venn Crescent. Councillor Nunziata.
Move staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.10 parking regulation amendment King Street between Weston Road and George Street. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recs. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.11 parking regulation amendment Queen Elizabeth Boulevard. Councillor Ford on my behalf, please.
I move staff recommendations.
Councillor Ford moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.12 designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes 48 Milwick Drive, 75 Rexdale Boulevard, 415 Evans Avenue, 5533 Steeles Avenue West, 25, 35, 41, and 53 Warrender. Councillor Hall, do you have an amendment to this?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
The motion's on the screen.
Yep, there's a chain at 41 and 50, sorry, at 2535 Warrender, and I want to make sure that that's entered into the minutes.
Okay, on the amendment, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. As amended, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. New business, 10.13 John Street pedestrian Saturdays for the Weston Farmers Market. Need a motion to add this to the agenda. Moved by Councillor Perruzza. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll move the recommendation
Is
for
everybody,
the staff to report back in February.
Everybody's good with that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll go to our first item. Yep. 10.3, left turn prohibition, Keele Street and North Park Drive at Quinlan Drive. We have a speaker, Mr. David Ferrero. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning.
And
Thank you.
you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Well, I don't need 5 minutes. Only maybe
Well, you
one or
can
two
have
minutes.
5 minutes. You can have 1 minute, whatever you like.
Well, in regards to the no left turn on Quinan Avenue, we had about 95% of the residents sign the petition, all in favor of increasing the time from 7 to 9 to 7 to 10.
709. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Questions? Seeing none? Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none? Questions of staff?
No.
Councilor Perruzza?
I'm absolutely fine. I like what you had to say.
Okay, good. Speakers, Councilor Nunziata to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll move the staff recommendation. I did have a community meeting with residents about a year ago, and we had over 100 people that attended. And there was a petition that was submitted in to me. We had a number of on-site meetings. And this is just the first step on some of the parking amendments that we want to make in that area. This is in the Lawrence and Keele area. Where there's a lot of congestion, and so the residents in that area are very concerned at the volume of traffic and that people are turning down the residential streets as a shortcut to get to Lawrence Avenue. So I do support the staff recommendation.
Any further speakers? Seeing none, the recommendation is before you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, we have our last item as a 10.1 final report 2346, 2352 Weston Road zoning bylaw amendment application, but we timed this for 10 o'clock, so we're going to have to recess till 10 o'clock. We recess till 10. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I call this meeting back to order. And we're going to deal with 10.1, final report, 2346, 2352 Weston Road, zoning bylaw amendment application. We have a speaker, Arlene Beaumont. Good morning, Ms. Beaumont. Welcome. And you have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Arlene Beaumont, Outred and Associates. We are the agents for the owners of 2346 Weston Road. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation, which just sort of summarizes the excellent report that planning has prepared. So the property is located on the west side of Weston Road, just south of St. Philip's. I wanted to talk briefly about how we came up with the name for this project. We were working with the Weston Historical Society, and they mentioned that First Nations peoples used the west side of the Humber as a trail, a walking trail, between the lake and the Holland River, which is up near Lake Simcoe. And so we decided to honor that historical fact, and we called it, I guess they called it the carrying place, and so we are going to call our building the carrying place Vista in honor of the First Nations people that did use the trail, which probably went right past the rear of our proposed building. In terms of highlights, this building is approved under the Open Door Affordable Housing Program. 100% of the units will be affordable. Our focus will be on an older adult population, aged 59 and older, who meet the city's requirements for affordable housing. Tenants may also be in receipt of housing benefits, so there will be a stacking of benefits here. We are proposing a mix of bachelors, 1 and 2 bedroom suites, with barrier-free design throughout the building, and 22% of the units will be accessible suites for those who require mobility devices. In terms of amenities, we have air conditioning, free Wi-Fi throughout the building, a beautiful rooftop garden, some indoor amenity areas. There's going to be 3 large spaces, and we intend to work with community partners such as York West Active Living to program those spaces. There's laundry rooms and garbage chutes on each floor, with a larger laundry room on the ground floor. We have 29 parking spaces, which does meet the bylaw requirement for an assisted housing project. 95 bike parking, which breaks down into 9 short-term and 86 long-term. The walkways into the building will be heated to remove ice and snow quickly and ensure our tenants' safety. There'll be an on-site super, the building will be secure, and we have excellent access to public transit. The bus actually stops right outside the front door. There were some challenges with this site. All the area at the rear of the site that's colored in green has to be dedicated to TRCA as natural lands, and they will be kept natural. And at the front of the site, there's a 4+ meter strip that has to be dedicated to the city for road widening. So the site that we bought has been reduced by more than half for land dedications. Obviously, this created some problems as we're trying to design the building, because we're working with a much tighter site than we originally anticipated. The main floor, as I mentioned, there's 3 community spaces. The super suite is on the main floor. Laundry, and there's a community services room. We anticipate that potentially our tenants could meet healthcare providers there, a visiting nurse or nutritionist or podiatrist, or those kind of uses in that smaller community room, which is right in off the front lobby. As I mentioned, typical floor plan will have a mix of 1s, 2s, and bachelor suites. I'm sorry this roof plan isn't colored because I think it would give you a better idea, but we are anticipating a lovely roof garden with seating and planting beds and a trellis and a barbecue hookup. So a very nice area for our tenants to spend some time outdoors looking over that beautiful Humber Ravine. Our architects aren't here, but I would like to acknowledge what a great job that they've done designing this building that does not look like affordable housing at all. It's just as attractive as any of the condo buildings that are currently being built in the area. And you can see the front perspective. We have a nice canopy over the front door and some wood accenting. And I think as people walk by on Weston, they're going to see a very nice, inviting looking building. Here's this is just a chart showing the unit types, the number of each, and the number of accessible, and then the monthly rent for each, and the qualifying income. And that's the maximum income you could have to qualify for a building. So our zoning bylaw proposes a maximum height of 15 stories, 127 units, indoor amenity area of 188 square meters, outdoor amenity area of 219, 29 parking, 86 bike parking. At 21% of the lot area will be reserved for landscaping, of which 9.5% will be soft landscaping. The current proposal has been a long time coming. It's been 18 months of hard work with planning staff, the Affordable Housing Office, councillors Nunziata and Bio, and the community. We did have 2 community meetings, one in 2018 and one in 2019. Sorry, there's a typo there. The interesting thing at those meetings is we had people coming up to us saying, how can I sign up? Is there a way to get on the list for this building? And I mention this because I think it shows that there's a lot of demand for good quality, affordable housing in Weston. And we worked closely with the Historical Society and the Ratepayers Association. At the end of the day, I think we have a proposal that provides much needed affordable housing in an attractive building with a number of amenities that will appeal to the older adult population in the neighborhood, including those who require accessible suites. We have submitted a site plan application. We look forward to working with staff through that process for final approval in 2020.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Holiday?
Thank you for speaking to us today. I wondered if you could help me with 2 things, because I'm thinking about them for some developments in my area. The first is, I know from experience, I've received some new complaints over aircraft that fly right over this spot. And we know the main aircraft corridor is predominantly over the highway, but they're starting to turn a little bit south earlier. Could you tell me a little bit about thinking around noise mitigation, and in particular for aircraft? Because that seems to be an emerging change right at that location. And we want to have healthy spaces for people.
Right. We did have a noise and vibration study prepared by RWDI engineers. They did recommend some noise mitigation in terms of the windows, and also I think construction materials, that kind of thing. I don't know the specifics of that, but it is very definitely in that report.
Yeah, I noticed the section on it, and perhaps the question to you would be, would you convey to your client that the recommendation for me perhaps is to err on the side of caution when they're designing the building envelope and all the mitigation factors, because there's a lot going on. It's close to the highway, it's close to the road, and I know from experience as a councillor that particular spot with relation to aircraft. And the second question I had for you was, I'm intrigued by the idea that it's a predominantly older adult focused building. Mm-hmm. And some of the emerging trends on the thinking around these buildings is to set it up so that services come to them. Whether it's a nurse comes to visit a whole bunch of clients at a critical location or something else, And I wondered if you had begun to program the spaces in the building, and if you're thinking about setting up an environment that supports that type of activity. So whether it's a meeting room downstairs that could work as not as a clinic, but as a meeting space for those type of services, or some other thinking in the layout of the building that's a little bit different from a traditional apartment building, but something that is geared to the residents and the services that they'll need.
Absolutely. We've already entered into discussions with York West Active Living. They do programming in Weston for the older adult population. They have all kinds of stuff going on all the time. One of our meeting rooms does have a kitchen, so we could potentially do dinners for people, various that kind of social activity. As I mentioned, there was that community space at the front. It's more like an office space, but potentially a tenant could be meeting with his diabetic nurse or somebody that's a healthcare provider to discuss, instead of going up to the suite, having it down there. The other thing is there could be some tenants that subscribe to Meals on Wheels. Our Meals on Wheels person could deliver for everybody to that spot, that kind of thing. So we have thought about the needs of an older adult population.
And so, yeah, if my question to you is, would you take it back to your client that, you know, the type of questions that were asked were around, you know, thinking about what the future holds for the way services are delivered, and in particular to seniors in the city, because we're seeing a change now.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Lindsay had a question.
Yes, I just have one question. So in the recommendation 4 is before introducing the necessary bills to council for amendment, that city council required the owner to submit the following. So the bills will not be approved until the A and B has been activated.
Sorry,
It's conditional.
Yes,
For the bills
yes.
to be approved.
Yes.
That for recommendation for A and B, that the applicant has to submit in their
Yes.
plans
Yes.
on.
The waste management plan is in process right now. We expect to be able to submit that to planning by Friday.
Okay, so and also as far as the garbage chutes.
Yes, we have incorporated garbage chutes on each floor with a tri-sorter in our garbage room.
So that you have that as part of your plan today?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'll have to ask the planner. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Peruzzo?
I just want to, and I can't see it here, I understand that you're going to be dedicating some lands at the back of the property to the TRCA. You will know that there's a beautiful trail down at the Humber that ends just north of the site and begins again just south of the site. And there's an access to that trail just south of here, correct? Yeah. So did you make any provisions for a potential future access to that trail when it finally gets built out through the site?
We have not, because we will be giving those lands to TRCA as a condition of this approval. So it would be their lands and their decision whether they connect the two pieces of the trail through our property.
No. I understand the connection. What I'm asking about is, and maybe this could be a question of planning later. The allowing access from Weston Road, let's say, through the site to the future trail, because there aren't very many accesses that the public. I mean, it's beautiful. It would be beautiful for your residents. It's a wonderful ravine system trail that has so much potential, and it's broken. It's broken in this area. It breaks down just north of you, and so kind of like continues just to the south. So, so there's been no thinking around that.
No, there
and
was not.
You haven't been asked by anybody for a potential link in that way.
In fact, they're asking for a chain link fence across the new property line,
Oh.
so that even our tenants would not be able to access those lands. That's their requirement.
Oh, that's bad, right? Oh my God. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question of staff.
Well, we're still on questions of the
Oh,
deputy.
okay, sure.
Okay, so, seeing no further, I have a very quick question. So you're targeting the older adult population, 59 and over, so I'm 58, I wouldn't qualify. So, you kind of went through the unit sizes very quickly. Can you go back to those unit sizes?
Of course.
So 42 bachelor, 70, no 3 bedrooms because that wouldn't be the target for that age group. How big are the bachelor units? How many square feet would they be?
I believe the bachelors are around 35. They meet the
35.
square meters, and they.
I'm an old guy though. I need them in square feet. Sorry, I'm not that. I'm not 59, but
Okay, so I'm doing a basic about 400 square feet, and that meets the assisted housing, affordable housing office guidelines for affordable housing.
what would the 400 square foot unit go per month? Any idea?
So that would be up there, $1,004 per month, and that is that number comes from the city of Toronto. That's not our number. That's your
Okay.
number.
I just went through quickly. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
No further questions. Thank you very much. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, questions to staff. Councilor Nunziata.
Okay, question to staff.
And what's worse is when that person moves out, or their
So,
income changes. It's like really bizarre and stupid. We call it affordable housing.
Councilor Cruz, can you shut your mic off, please?
Oh.
Thank you. So, I asked the question about the garbage chute. So is that included in the site plan?
Yes, so the revised drawings that were submitted as part of the rezoning application do include a garbage chute.
Okay.
And again, through the site plan application process, that garbage chutes and the requirements of the garbage storage area and the staging area also has to meet the requirements of Toronto Green Standards and waste management as well.
So does that mean then, with the recommendation, it's just B that would be outstanding before we approve the bills?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The issue is just because they're showing on the site plan doesn't mean that we have a formal waste management plan.
Okay.
What needs to back it up is an idea about how the chutes get used, when it gets picked up, the vehicles that pick it up, and how it's going to be managed, because it doesn't meet the city's standards, so it's going to have to be a private pickup.
Okay, so that's still a condition.
That it's still a condition until we get that information into solid waste management's hands. They look at it and they say yes, and then we will advise council that the conditions for recommendation 4 have been addressed. If it can happen fast enough between now and the council meeting, we can put a quick quick supplementary report advising council that they've been addressed. You can delete recommendation 4. If not, if it happens, it could happen on the next cycle of council.
Okay, thank you. Now, as well as part of the units, I know that the agent didn't mention it, because I know that when we met, when the applicant met with the Weston Village Residents Association with a letter, that they supported with a number of conditions that some of the units be accessible,
Yes.
designed with accessibility.
Yes. So 22% of the units that are proposed are accessible units.
Okay. Now, as far as the question that Councillor Pruden has asked, do you know? I know that the city was working. I don't know if you can answer that question on the trail behind on Weston Road, behind the buildings. Do you know if that's part of the overall plan for the city?
I can answer that. So yes, Councillor. So they are looking at creating a trail through this area. The challenge is going to be that part of this area is to be naturalized, and so there's a stewardship plan that will be required through the site plan control application. So through the review of the site plan control application, we will review, the applicant noted that TRSA is asking for a fence back there, whether or not it's an appropriate location for a fence, whether or not the trail connection needs to come through there. It's going to be, so we will address all of that through the site plan.
Through the site plan?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because I know that we were working on that, and I'm just responding to Councillor Prutz's question. So with the Weston Historic Society, there has been dialogue with the Weston Historic Society. So they're working with the Weston Historic Society as part of the heritage aspect of the site. Correct?
With regards to the river stones
Yes.
along the frontages of the property, yes. And
Yes.
that's proposed to be salvaged and incorporated as part of the landscape design in the proposed development.
Okay. Now the road widening this year, I think it's starting this year or 2020, that the city is repaving Weston Road from St. Philip's south to Wright Avenue, where they're repaving it and widening some of the sidewalks. So would part of the widening of the road be part of that whole project? Do you know? Have you spoken to transportation?
At this point, it probably would not have advanced that far, Councillor, because we actually won't get the land dedicated until the site plan control application is completed, and through that process we get a dedication. The other thing is it would have to be deemed to be clean, so they will have to do a site review to make sure that the land is clean. So if there is a program of resurfacing in the area that's on the 2020 capital budget for...
It's actually starting the spring of 2020.
Right. I doubt whether that's been incorporated in that, because we wouldn't have control of the property by that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pruitt, a question.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that. So what I'm hearing is that it would be a good planning principle to create connections, both for the residents and the public, to the ravine system. Right?
At a very high level, Councillor, yes, I would agree with that. Obviously, what you want to do is create connections between, for example, Weston Road and down into the ravine. But you also have to acknowledge that there are locations where it might not be the appropriate place for that. So we would work with our colleagues in TRCA and our ravine protection colleagues and determine if this is an appropriate location for that kind of connection. Because you don't want completely unfettered access down into ravines. It has to be safe, it has to be controlled, it has to be appropriate.
And I don't disagree with that. So the only access that we have now into the ravine, and I understand that there may not be any trail behind this particular site, is just a little further down the road, and that's like a very, very steep connection, like really steep. It's like, I don't know in terms of degrees what we're looking at, but I would venture to say somewhere between 35 and 40 or 45 degree slope. It's like steep. So you have to be like sort of an Olympic rider to ride your bike up that slope, right? And most people have to walk it. And going down is very, very risky and somewhat dangerous. So I would think that the question is that wherever there might be other opportunities, redevelopment opportunities in this area, that one would immediately engage the applicants in a conversation to say, look, if it can be achieved in a better, safer way, that we would be having those conversations with people to say, you know what, we need to create some kind of a connection here, either by way of easement or by way of direct connection to that ravine, number one. And number two, the other conversation I would be having with the applicants along the way, understanding that the ravine system is a treasure and should be accessible to as many people as possible. The other conversation I would be having with those applicants is, what can you contribute to, because it'll be a benefit to their development, ultimately. What can you contribute by way of either lands or money to the development of that trail system through here, so that we can achieve it faster, and so that so the question is, were either of those two things broached with this particular applicant, i.e. access, and B, i.e. contributions to the development of that trail system?
The answer to the question is yes and no. The first question is, they are dedicating a lot of land off the rear of the property. You heard the applicant talk about it. They are dedicating it to the TRCA. So if there is a trail connection that makes its way through that area, then it will be, as I said, our colleagues in the TRCA and our colleagues in ravine protection, we will help design it. So they are giving a lot of land off the rear of their property for that. As to access through their property, I would suggest it's extremely challenging. As the applicant noticed, it's a very, very tight site. It's got two driveways because the building could not be designed with a singular driveway and any at-grade amenity space at the side of the building. So it would mean any pedestrian connection would be through a driveway that would either have garbage vehicles or vehicles coming out from an underground. I don't think this would be an appropriate location for any kind of public easement or public access across these lands into any kind of trail behind it, because I don't think you would be able to make it work properly and safely on this property.
No, I understand the way it is now. There's garbage trucks, but I guess what I'm saying is, and I get it on this one, the horses are probably out of the barn and they're gone over the hill, and we're probably not going to get them back in, right? But as we move forward in this area, as other applications come forward. Now, I understand that.
Councilor Pruzza, you have an opportunity to speak. You got a question?
Yeah.
It's not a conversation. We're on questions.
I will speak. Then sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seeing no further questions of staff, Councilor Nunziata to speak.
Yeah, being it's my ward. So I will move the recommendation. This process has been a long process. We did have 2 community meetings, and then as well as the applicant met with the Weston Village Residents Association and the York West Active. Hello, I'm speaking. I met with the York West Active Living Center, which is at Weston Lawrence. And when they met with the Weston Village Residents Association, there was a letter that was submitted into the executive committee, and there were a number of requests that were made from the letter. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but I can't speak. A number of conditions, and the conditions were that it be a senior residence as well. There'd be accessible units as well, and some community space for the seniors, and as well as worked with the Western Historic Society. And so that, and from the public meeting and the community meeting that I did have, the residents that attended the meeting were very much in support of it, because in Weston there is a need for seniors, for residential affordable housing in Weston. And I'm very pleased that the applicant has come forward with this application. But the conditions that are in the recommendation need to be met before the final bills are approved, because I'm very much in support of the conditions that the staff has brought forward. As far as the trail, I think we can look at that when we go through the site plan and work with TRCA, but that's an issue that could be discussed at a further date. This application, I do support and needs to proceed. As I said, it's been a few years in the making, and residents in Weston are asking when this project is going to start. So I support the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councilor Nunziata. Councilor Pruzza to speak.
Sure. I think we have a beautiful trail system in Nahumber, and the access points in this area are very limited. And I think from a planning perspective, when applications come forward in this area, the first thing that I would want to consider, and in a very, very serious way, is how we enhance those accesses, both for the building and the residences of the new building, as well as the broader public. Because so far, the only access you have here is somewhat south of the site. Councillor Holliday was just showing it to me on his phone. and it's a very narrow, very steep access point to that trail system, and the trail system does continue in this area. I understand the TRCA and the standing rule, as I understand it, when an application comes forward and that have below top of bank lands attached to them, the TRCA gets those lands. They do the owners of those properties a favor, because it's not a give by the developers or the owners. It's basically the TRCA assumes them. It's usually a slope, a very fragile slope, and the TRCA assumes all the liabilities and all the works connected to maintaining those slopes. I get that. So ideally, you want a lot of vegetation on there. You want trees and all the rest of it. But we also have a bigger role to play in this, and our role is to build a city that we can all be proud of. And the way we build a city we can all be proud of is we look for these opportunities where people can enjoy the city in its totality. And that's part of our role, I believe. And enjoying that trail system and the Humber should be fundamental to that. So I would hope that in the future, and if there are any opportunities with this one, that we look at that and look at creating those linkages, because from a city building point of view, it's good for us to do, and we should be doing that. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to say that.
You left a couple minutes on the table. Thank you, Councilor Bridges. Seeing no further speakers, Councilor Dunges moved the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that wraps things up. Councilor Hall, you have a motion to introduce and enact certain bills.
I do, Mr. Chair, and make sure I get the right one. I've got the confirming and the general. Thank you. That Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 1518 to 1523 and 1566 prepared for the November 5th, 2019 meeting 10 of the Community Council.
Shall these bills be passed and declared as bylaws? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Hall, you have a motion to introduce and enact the confirming bill.
I do, Mr. Chair, that the Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceeding of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 10 on November 5th, 2019.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Motion adjourned by Councilor Ford. Thank you, everybody.